In this video, we're going to be looking at the armature modifier, and rather than actually add it in here, because we actually would have to link an armature to this, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that one. We'll get it to create that automatically, but for starters, we have to add our armature into this scene. So I've already gone in and added some subdivisions to this cube. Vertices are quite important because that's how the armatures modify the actual object, as they create vertex groups like we did in some earlier things, and they move those vertex groups. They're also weighted so that they affect some vertex groups more than others. So I'm going to go ahead and tab out of this object. I'm going to go ahead and go to orthographic by hitting 5 on the number pad. I'm going to hit 1, so I'm looking at it from the front. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here because I'm going to be working within the bounds of the cube for my armature. I'm going to do Shift A. And using the settings in Blender, I actually added some tools. I added the human meta rig. I also added the animal rigs and the basic rigs here. And so these can be kind of useful for working with or building a design that you would use for like sculpting a person around or something like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go up to armature and single bone. And here I can see that bone right in the background. I'm going to go over into my properties editor. I'm going to scroll down the properties editor until I find display. I'm going to click on X-ray so I can see that bone. I can also do things, for instance, like I can change this from textured to solid, which I don't need it to be textured because there's no texture I'm applying to the bones. I can also change it to wireframe if I want. Whatever works for you. I'm going to go ahead and do solid. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to my to the little bone icon in the setting. There's also an armature icon, so like I can give this a name. Let's call this Boxy. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the bone icon. This I'm going to call root because that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to move my root down. So the end here is where it pivots from. This is the end that controls. And what you should do with the armature first is set up kind of a control bone that doesn't affect your object, but you can use to move around the entire thing. It's what everything will come out of for doing the armature. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and tab in to edit mode. I'm going to select, actually before I select that one, I'm going to go ahead and do E for extrude. And I'm just going to extrude straight up. So I'm going to hit Z as I go. I'm going to put kind of roughly where those little crosshairs there are, right on the top of the box. And I'm going to call this one, if I go scroll up to the top here, and I'm going to change that to top. Hit enter. I'm going to go back and select this bottom bone, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to uncheck the deform box. I'm going to, from there, I'm going to also do E, and I'm going to go out to the side here, and I'm going to call that one, it went away just a second here. So, let's do this, E, and we'll do X. So we're going to set one there. Let's call this bone. So if I'm looking at it and it's supposed to be the front of the object, even though it's on my right, it would be its left. So I'm going to call, well, let's just call it side dot L for left. And then I'm not going to duplicate it going that way yet, but I will rotate this around a little bit. And I'm going to extrude the end here. This won't be our most practical box, but that's okay. I'm going to do Y, so I go along the Y-axis. I'm going to get it right about to the end there. And let's call this, instead of saying .001, I'm going to take off that ending. I'm going to leave the .l on the end. But let's say side front. Okay, so I'm going to do side front, like so. And I'm going to go take this one, and I'm going to go E, Y, so I go along the Y-axis. And I'm going to call this side back, and take this way. And I still have that .l there. I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a moment. So let's see. I had this one here being side front, .l. You notice I'm typing the names in what we call camel case, meaning that I capitalize each word so I can recognize it. You can use underscore if you want, but don't use spaces as you do these. So I'm going to do, on this one, I'm going to do EZ. And you'll notice that every time you extrude a bone, it renames it based off the one that you extruded it from. And so like if I do EZ and I go down to there like so, then it extrudes again from the one that we just labeled it. I'm going to do EZ up, and I'm going to go EZ down on this other one. So I have this grid like so going to the corners. And the only reason I'm doing it this way is because it's the way I chose to do it. There's no logical reason other than just demonstrating how this works. So I'm going to call this side back top. Okay, the idea is being able to recognize where those are. This one I'm going to call side back bottom. And I'm going to take away that additional numbering there. Never hurts to go back and recheck the bones that you have been working with. And this one we're going to call side front top. And again, take away the numbers. And then I'm going to go ahead and do over here, I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to do side front bottom and take away those numbers. Now, as you can imagine, if I keep doing this with all these, and if I added some extra parts further up, that could, again, create a much more complicated armature. And if you're doing like armature of an animal or something like that, you can get pretty complicated fast. What I want to do is I want to be able to take everything over here and duplicate it onto the other side. And so I'm going to go down to select, and I'm going to say select child. And actually I was hoping it would select all the children. So what I want to do is, rather than do it that way, let's go back to this one. Let's see if this will work. So I'm doing Control plus, and there I ended up selecting everything, which I could have just done in the first place. I'm taking these guys so that I have all of them. I should also just make sure that everything is deformed. I was pretty sure that it was, but I definitely want these bones to be able to deform the object. I'm going to do Shift D, and I'm going to bring it towards in the X direction here, and just kind of roughly lining it up. Okay. So now I have it that way. I need to mirror this, so I'm going to go down to where it says Armature. Right towards the bottom of the list is Mirror, and I'm going to mirror it in the X direction. Okay, so this doesn't represent the axis you're mirroring across, it represents the direction that you're mirroring it. So I'm going to do X global, and there you can see I just flipped. Why I didn't flip over there, I don't know. Oops. Okay, got to do that again because I hit escape. So after you click mirror and global, hit enter to set that, and then we can replace it where we think it should be. I'm going to click on the bone here that would go from this point, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and select the bone that it came from, or should come from. Right now those aren't attached, but I can do so. The shortcut for pausing the video recording is apparently the same as for parenting or parenting an object. And so I had in edit mode with this selected, had done control, and this one selected last. I did control P to parent, and that put them together after they were parented. I had also gone in to change the naming of those. So I actually am going to switch back to object mode here, and I had actually done not object mode. I actually want edit mode. So I'm going to go to edit mode, and here I can see my normal Armature settings, all like so. So I go to edit mode, and then in Armature, you can do with the ones that are selected, if you do flip names, it'll flip L's to R's, so you get from left to right. And you'll notice that over here, if I click on my different bones in the set, for some reason that's not updating there. Oh, that's the Armature, but here you can see that I have a .r. I also have the numbers for the duplicates. I'm not going to worry about those right now. There's a few other ways to do this too that I've seen, but it's all good. If you want to clean that up, you could. I'm not going to worry about it. So what I moved on to in that last few minutes is posing the bones. So I go from edit mode to pose mode. And here you can see where I've started to keyframe things already. When you start off at the very beginning, so for instance, right now I have this bone here. It's not keyframed, which is okay, but if I've keyframed it at the beginning over here, if I hit R to rotate this, and I'm just rotating it down right now like so, then I want to hit I to keyframe that, and any other bones I'm going to move, like this one, let's say we go R, pull it back a little, like this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to hit I to keyframe that. I'm going to move a little bit more forward in this, and then maybe I want to move this whole thing over like that. Let's actually do Y, so I just kind of move it up like so. I'm going to take this one. Actually, I need to keyframe that, otherwise I lose those changes. So I go over the rotation section, I hit I to keyframe it. I'm going to go to this one, I'm going to hit R, pull it back a little bit. You can see it pulls a lot of areas, but it pulls some areas more than it pulls others. So I'm going to hit that, I'm going to hit I to keyframe that. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to hit R, and pull it down like so, and I'm going to hit I to keyframe it. So I have some basic stuff there. I'm going to change my end to, let's say 42 frames, so I can see what happens there. Go back to the beginning of it. I'm going to hit play, and there's my moving cube controlled by armatures. It didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would, so there we go. That's one of the things that we can do with armatures, but there's more that you can do. I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a moment. And here, if I go back to the bones here, right now I have, I can actually add segments to bones. And so if I look in this one, I don't really see anything happening, and that's probably because we need to change the bone type for that to work. I don't think this will actually move very well with that. So if I go to my armature, I can actually change the type of bones in my system. So I have stick, I have B-bone, box, and here I can actually see those sections that I made, and or bendy bones, I guess that would be. And so I can add segments to it. I can make it look a little bit more fluid that way. It's another option. There's also envelope and wire. whichever ones you end up going with, you can play around with those. There's also constraints, and that's all for this video, though, that we're going to cover.